Again, as you're coming in, if your student has already turned in their paperwork, just have a seat in the bleachers. At 7, we will conduct the meeting and then finish collecting the paperwork after the meeting. right, ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do, I'd like to go ahead and have everybody sit down so I can conduct the meeting. So those people that have turned everything in, they can leave. Then we'll let you that haven't turned stuff in, go ahead and stick around and turn the stuff in then. I'd like to go ahead and get the rest of the meeting started. So please go ahead and sit down and we'll finish collecting after we're done with the meeting. Quick reminder, as you come in, try to social distance as much as possible. Keep your mask on and up over your nose. We would appreciate that. We're going to start with, my name is Bruce Rupp. I'm the USD489 Driver's Education Coordinator. I'm in my 27th year of doing this position. I'll introduce you down the end is Jessica Dale, Justin Haney, Ryan Quimby in his first year, Kate Scott, Scott Lindemeyer, Sandy Zaginal, I'll make up my driver's ed staff. Janae Ackerson, Renee Booth make up my financial staff that are collecting the credit card payments. Teresa Wilkinson and Wilkerson is here from the DMV is going to talk to you about the forms you have to get your license as we progress through the graduate licensing program, how the appointment process is currently working, etc. Okay, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. We're going to go ahead and start with Teresa go first, explaining her job and things you need to be aware as your son or daughter progress through the DMV's graduate licensing program, what you have to have for documentation, okay, and everything else, okay?
As Bruce said, my name is Teresa. I have been with the Hayes License Office since July 2013. So one of the things he asked about is the class and what they qualify for. A 14-year-old only has 3 options. They can get a non-commercial Class C learner's permit, which is your cars and your trucks. Kids, yes, I'm going to say this, they can qualify and get a non-commercial motorcycle learner's permit. You can also get what they call a farm permit. In order to get a farm permit, you must live or work on a working farm of 20 acres or more. That means the land actually needs to be used for farming purposes or agricultural purposes. The graduated license program that he was talking about, so at 14 you can get a learner's permit. Anyone under the age of 17, you have to hold that learner's permit for a full year to the date. If you reach the age of 17 prior, at the age of 17 you can take the driver's test. If you complete driver's education and have held that learner's permit for 1 year, in 1 year you bring that completion slip in, you can move to what they call a restricted license. With a restricted license, they can drive to and from school via the most direct route, 1 trip per day, for the purpose of academic attendance. I remind you, academic attendance. This does not include weights. This does not include sports or music or your other additions. Slight catch. If it is before or after, you can go early. You can stay late, but you can only do 1 trip per day while school is in session. So Saturdays and summer classes, unfortunately, those are out. They can also go to and from work via the most direct route. So say if they're babysitting in the summer, they can go to that house and they can go back home. They cannot transport those children around. Once you've held the learner's permit and you move on to your restricted, complete all 50 hours of supervised driving time, which tend to have to be at night. The other 40 daytime doesn't matter. If you want to throw in inclement weather or something, that's up to you. It's not required by the state. At 16, as long as those hours have been turned in, it will automatically go to what they call a less restricted. With a less restricted, they can go to and from school, to and from work, anywhere from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Outside those hours, they can go to and from work, to and from school, school-related activities, religious activities, and anything outside those restrictions or hours, they still have to have someone over the age of 21 in the passenger seat. At 16 and a half, as long as they have met all those requirements and done nothing to get in trouble, it goes to a full license. Oh, I forgot, at 16, they can also then have one non-sibling passenger in the vehicle with them. If they have younger siblings, and that younger sibling school is on their direct route to their school, guess what, parents? You got a free drop-off, because they can drop them off. If it's out of their route, sorry, they can't do it. Under the age of 16 and a half, they are not allowed to touch their cell phones while driving, unless it is to report an emergency act. Pop quiz kids, do you know what can happen with your first offense of those restrictions? Take that as a no. 30-day suspension. Want to know what can happen if you have 2 violations? State of Kansas can suspend it until you are 17 years old. And in that time, your test scores are going to expire, and guess what? You got to start over. Driver's ed completion slips are good for 2 years from the date it is signed. So say you finish your driver's ed June 1st of 2021, you have until 2023 to have brought it in for every process. You're paying the money, use it for the permit, use it to get the restricted. You're already spending the funds for it. The policy, another little thing that we've had issues with that, the completion slip is called a DE99. Okay, so say you come in at 16, you know, hey, I want to switch over. You forgot or you lost that slip, and they're like, oh, I'll just go for the drive test. I strongly advise you do not do it. Because if you come in and you take that drive test with us, and you fail it, and you try to come back tomorrow with that completion slip, I'm sorry, it's null and void. Because you chose to test. So I recommend you go home and find it. Hey, if you lost it, guess what? You have an awesome school staff. They can pull up the records and they will print it out on letterhead for you. Fees was another thing he asked about. A learner's permit is $10. It covers 4 attempts at the test. Unfortunately, the COVID extension allowing more than 1 test per day has ended. You are only allowed 1 attempt at the test per day now. If for some reason you fail the 4th attempt, which we usually strongly advise against you doing if you're taking driver's ed, you have to wait 6 months before you can test again from that last fail date. That includes taking driver's education. So most of the time you'll hear us, if for some reason you failed that 3rd, we don't recommend you take the 4th. Go take driver's ed and bring us the slip. If you are choosing to get a farm permit, farm permits kind of got 2 choices. Personally, we recommend that you get the learner's permit and practice driving first, especially if you're not taking the full driver's ed before then, because it's a drive-in haze, and driving on the county roads is not the same as driving in haze with traffic. If you bring in the completion slip for it, you're looking at $28 because there's no testing fee on our side. If you come in and you take either of the tests with us, you're looking at $31. With the restricted when you're 15, driver's ed completion slip, $28. So if for some reason you're not able to make your course or you don't take driver's ed this summer, and you decide, oh, I'm not going to bother, I'll just go for it, remember that, have to hold a learner's permit. The only way to move on to a restricted to 15 is with the completion slip. Your other option, you have to renew the learner's permit, hold it till you're 16, and then you can come take the drive with us. I don't know if it qualifies for anyone here, but some people do use the DCF voucher, because if you have foster kids or something, DCF has stated now that they will cover all the fees, whether it is an ID card, a learner's permit, or the driver's license. You can use the voucher more than once, but it has to be a different voucher each time. So say you came in when they were 12 and got them an ID card and used that voucher and it was signed for 2018, great. You come in 3 years later, you want to get them a learner's permit and use that form again, it needs to be a different form, different date. Same thing with the next step. Bruce mentioned some of the IAP, can somebody come and sit with them and read the test? No, unfortunately you cannot. However, our computers are capable of audio. Just ask, we're more than happy to turn it on. We do usually try to remember to ask. We're not all perfect, we do forget it sometimes. If you have someone who is better in Spanish than English, we do have the test available in Spanish. It also has audio. Heads up from those that we have asked, it's more like Spain Spanish than most of what people speak around here. In fact, I've heard some of them chuckling at it before. Required documents. And some people were asking about the Real ID. The same things that they have to start the record, it's going to make it Real ID compliant. A state-issued birth certificate or a valid passport. This is what shows their legal presence here in the United States. Those are just the most common. We have visas and other things. Proof of the Social Security. The card itself is the most common. If you cannot find the card, the front page of your tax return that claims them as a dependent, as long as it is not more than 3 years old, can be used in place of the card for the proof of the social. 2 proofs of the physical address with the first and last legal name on it. This is usually very difficult for a minor because they don't usually get a whole lot of mail. A parent can present their license and the proofs of address in their name. If the address is current on the license, there's one. Second one has to be dated in the last year, and you will then sign a certificate of address stating that the minor resides with you. Like I said, it will in the process become Real ID compliant. Some people are talking about that. Does anyone understand the purpose of the Real ID? How many of you in here remember 9/11? Probably quite a few, not so much the kids. So the terrorists of 9/11 took fraudulent documents and got valid licenses in 13 states with them. So the purpose of the Real ID Act is to cut down on the fraudulent documents, identity theft, and illegal presence. It is actually supposed to make it harder for somebody to steal your identity. It said when their record is established, it does it anyway. Rare exception, if you have ever legally changed your name from how it appears on that birth certificate or passport that you used, you need the court-certified document that shows how you changed it. Court-certified. Unfortunately, we cannot take photocopies, we can't take them stamped duplicates. It has to be certified by the court. Any questions? I am going to hang around for a little bit if anybody's got anything they want to ask individually. I think we're good.
I want to talk first about permits. One, I want to make sure you as parents, so it's one of the issues that we had last year during driver's ed is I had students that were 14 that parents allowed to drive to driver's ed. Okay? I get a little bit upset when I see them driving on restricted licenses getting snowballs, but I really become offended when they show up in the Hayside parking lot and come into driver's ed when they drive themselves to school. Okay, one, understand the liability you're putting yourself out at if they wreck and kill somebody. Okay, secondly, it's just a poor example of allowing them to violate laws. Okay, the graduate licensing program is in place for a reason. We want them to gradually become experienced so they're safe on the road. Letting them drive when and wherever they want all the time is not helping them experience that. Okay, our intention is we want them to get a permit as soon as they can pass the test, get them out, let them drive as much as possible. Some of you are afraid to let them drive in traffic. I get that. We do it all summer long. That's why I'm bald. Okay? So take them out to Gross Memorial when it's empty. The Hayes Light parking lot when it's empty. Let them drive forward, backward, make left turns, right turns, accelerate, brake. Okay, if that scares you, get a lawnmower or a golf cart. Somehow get them behind the wheel with an accelerator and a brake so they can get some hand-eye coordination. So the first day we have them, they have some sort of experience. Okay, those of you that are afraid to do anything, okay, you put a lot of pressure on us to get them done in that 10-day period. Okay, so please try to get them some experience. The second thing that's really important about the permit, if they don't pass the test, or because their birthday is late and you don't get them out there to get the test before we start, it's a big deal, but it's not life-ending. The first day, we will take the test as part of our curriculum, and almost all the kids pass it that way. The permit that I'm allowed to give them is only good for 2 weeks. Only the 2-week session that they are in driver's ed. The Friday that their session ends, that permit becomes invalid. Please, the very first day that we give them that permit to use, go to the DMV and either make an appointment so you have a scheduled time to go see Teresa. They do take walk-ins, but you're not guaranteed to get in, depending on how busy they are. But if you do make an appointment, you are guaranteed that time. Okay, so the permit that I issue, okay, is only good for driver's ed, so you are not yet in their computer system, nor have you started the 1-year waiting period. So take it to them. They put you in their computer system. Your 1-year waiting period starts to get a restricted license. You also can now start logging hours. You cannot log hours on my permit. Okay, you can't log the 50 hours until you are in their computer system. Okay, and have their permit. Okay? Yeah, and so we encourage you, and we told the students when they did pre-enrollment, there's an app called ROAD, R-O-A-D, Ready, R-E-A-D-Y. It's the best app that we've found that most of us have used. We ask all your kids to put that on their phone if they have a phone. So when they drive with you, or your spouse, or with us, they open the app, they hit the start button, and that app keeps track of all their driving time. When they're done driving with us or you, they hit stop, and it stops. Not only does it keep track of that, it also separates day and night hours for them. So when you're ready to go get the restricted license, you take the phone, show them the results, and you have that for you. Please remember to get that permit converted that I give them the first day so you have your own. Because if you don't, then you have to use a completion slip instead to do that. You've lost 2 weeks. Keep in mind, the sooner you do that, the better, because then they're getting experience with you. Okay? Scheduling. So as of this morning, I had 117 enrollment forms turned in already. Last year we had 236 enrolled, we finished 217. So keep in mind, the scheduling is the worst part of this job. Okay? I try to make as many of you happy as I can, because when you live here your whole life, you know everybody, and everybody knows you. You feel like you have to make them happy. Okay? So I try to get you one of your first 2 choices. Okay? For me to help you out, I need as much information from you as possible. Okay? Make sure when you have filled out this form, you've thought about things like summer camps, vacations. If you have split custody, if your kid has to go live with your ex somewhere else for 6 weeks, whatever. If you have a son or daughter that's going to help with harvest, you have to have that first session so they can legally drive. Okay? The only information I got from Hayes High, Coach Crow said, and I told the kids this at school, but in case you hadn't heard, Coach Crow said the football players should avoid the first session and drive at 11 to 1 is best. But 7 to 9 is okay as well. People that plan on playing volleyball at Hayes High, Coach Funk said to take the first or second session, because her camps will be in July, and she prefers you to drive 7 or 9 or 9 to 11, not 11 to 1. Okay, that's all the information I've got. Coach Melvin wasn't too concerned since basketball doesn't start until late November. So if you need to change from what you already put on there, email me and I'll make that change, because some of you turned those forms in already. Okay? And if you don't worry about it, then I don't worry about it. So the schedules of my process is, if you're going to carpool, I need you to know that. If you're carpooling, I will not guarantee those kids the same car, but I will guarantee them the same driving time and the same session. Okay, the reason I tell you that is because I know several people say, oh, I want to be in this car with so-and-so. Well, I'm not going to put just everybody and their 2 buddies in the same car, because that gets me in trouble and causes my drivers to put up stuff they don't need to put up with. Okay? So that doesn't happen. But let me know if you're going to carpool, because I realize some of you have jobs, and And one set of parents can take, and the other set of parents can pick up. I get that. Okay, so let me know that as well. My hopes are to have this schedule back out to you by mid-April. Usually I work out over spring break. My fight is trying to get things turned in from all of your kids. Okay, because we have some stragglers that constantly enroll. And I will mail out a schedule. If that doesn't work for you, let me know right away. Because then I've got to start making phone calls and trying to beg people to switch. Okay, so let me know if it doesn't work so I can work on that as soon as possible. Our process, the classroom is at Hayside Lecture Hall. Each classroom session is from 8 to 12. Okay, the last one is only 8 to 11 because we only have one test and completion slips to hand out. Some scenarios. Let's say that Cade had to have the first session because everything else didn't work. Okay, and he made the first 7 days. He is quarantined for COVID. This is realistic now. Okay, so what happens? He has to still finish. Okay, legally the state says I have to have your son or daughter 7 days. We're doing 10 because we could not finish the driving when we tried running an 8-day program. So we added 2 more days of driving. Okay, the driving is not required. The classroom is as far as finishing all the material. Okay, so if Cade made the first 7, but he misses the last day, he missed the test. Okay, Cade has to choose when he's going to make up that test. Is he going to come the last day of the second session, the last day of the third session, or the last day of the fourth session? So I want him to hear the lecture, the speech, and take that test. Okay? All of the driving is not the same. If Cade's a farm kid from Victoria, has been driving since he's 10 years old on his dad's lap, he's probably a pretty good driver by the time I get him. If Mabel, I'll pick on Mabel since she's front and center, and I love her so much. If Mabel hasn't driven at all because she's young and doesn't turn 14 until the day before we start and hasn't had a chance to drive, I have to drive her a lot. Okay? Well, Cade has completed all of his competencies in 4 days of driving, so I don't have to have him anymore. He doesn't have to come to the rest of the driving sessions. So I'm going to use his time and give it to Mabel so she gets more driving time. Okay, so realize some of the kids are going to drive 7 days, and that last week they may drive 3 days, 6 hours a day. Okay, trust me, we want everybody to pass for 3 reasons. 1, you've invested $225. 2, your kids have invested 2 weeks. 3, the state doesn't give Renee any more money for your son or daughter unless we pass them. That's $150 per kid. And that adds up in hurry when you go by 200. Okay? But also realize this. This isn't like a science test that Mr. Lindemeyer gives. And if they fail that, there aren't any lives at stake. Okay, if I pass your son or daughter and they're not qualified, and they go pile up your vehicle and kill themselves and somebody else, I have to live with that. That doesn't happen. Okay, this isn't like a science class where they have a 61%, but boy, they work so hard and they tried so hard, so we give them a 63 and they pass. There is no gray area for any of us 6 drivers. Okay, they either can do it or they can't. If they can't, we're going to have you drive them some more and bring them back next summer and try again. Or you have the right to take them over to Teresa and let them test out and see if she thinks we're wrong and that they are good enough. Probably not going to happen. She's way meaner than we are. Okay? Another option. Let's say that Cade has Mabel, and I know. Cade has Mabel, and she was really close, but he's just not comfortable passing. But she's in the first session. Well, somebody in the second session didn't show up. And so Cade calls Mabel's parents and said, hey, we got some more time. Can we drive Mabel some more? She said, sure, that'd be great. So she gets to drive some more and then passes. Okay, this is often available to students in the first, second, and third session. Unfortunately, the fourth session is not because our cars go back the Friday of the last session. So we don't have that luxury. Okay? But we will do everything possible. If your son or daughter is very inexperienced, the first day these guys or me will be telling you, hey, this ain't happening. You got to get them behind the wheel, get them experience, or they're not going to have a prayer of passing. Okay, we're as honest with you as we can. We don't like to hurt their feelings and upset you, but we also have to be realistic to you and be honest with you. Okay, so please don't be offended if that happens. We're trying to give you a heads up early so you hit the road with them. Okay, and that makes a huge difference. Every year it happens, it makes a huge difference. Okay? So again, the driving part is at Hayes High in the classroom. Please be on time. If you're not on time, we're calling you. If you don't show up for class, Sandy or I are calling you. If you're home and your parents have already left for work and we wake you, we come get you. Okay, attendance is that big of an issue because we only have 10 days. We're not asking for a lot. Okay? Parents, please do not let your son or daughter spend the night at a friend's house if they have driver's ed the next morning at 6:45, unless that friend also is coming to driver's ed at 6:45. Because 9 times out of 10 they stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning playing video games or chatting or whatever you call all the other electronic devices they use, and then they don't make it up in time to come to class. Okay? We know that emergencies happen. If a quarantine or something happens, call me or email me so I am aware of what is going on so we can make arrangements to change sessions or finish the session later or whatever. Okay, I realize that there are deaths in the family, emergencies come up. I get all of that. But please communicate. The first day we will have your son or daughter give their cell number to their driver so that if our drivers have an emergency, we can contact you. Or if they don't show up or oversleep, we can contact them as well. So please don't be offended when my drivers ask that information. It's for a professional purpose. Okay? Say if I forget something, y'all be. The classroom process is 4 tests. The first day they will take the driver's ed permit test. If time allows, we will also take the Unit 1 test, which is chapters 1 through 6. If the time doesn't allow, we'll push that to the second day. The second day we'll take 1 through 6 chapters, also 7 through 12. The last classroom day we'll take chapters 13 through 18, issue completion slip, and send them on their way. Okay, those are the classrooms, 8 to 12, 8 to 12, 8 to 11 the last day. Understand our car is a classroom. Okay, all of us are a little bit different in the classroom. We're consistent in what we teach, how we teach it, but also we have some variances. I like using the golf course road for hills, country roads, and scary driving. Okay? Mr. Scott likes the Victoria area because he's from there. He knows that road better. Okay? Mr. Haney likes to stop at Casey's to use the restroom to get a pop and switch drivers because he's really fond of breakfast pizza. I like the service better because I like the pop taste better. Okay? Mr. Lindemeyer is a Sonic man. Okay? So keep in mind, all of us are going to have different little quirks, just like all of us here at the middle school teach our classrooms a little different. The cars are also taught a little different. Okay, in my car we can only have country music. Mr. Scott, the harder the rock, the better. Okay? Some of us will let your kids have food and drink, but we're very careful because all these cars are donated. Thank God they donate that, saves about $10,000. Okay? None of us allow flip-flops. We have to have a solid closed shoe because of flip-flops, the heel comes loose and it gets caught when we're switching from gas to brake. Okay? Please, when you start driving your kids now, make them put their phones away and pay attention to what you're doing. Right now, they are so used to just hopping in the car and not paying any attention to how to get somewhere. They don't know how far in advance you're turning your signal lights on, or if you are, how quick you accelerate, how soon you slow down, how you're changing lanes, how you're doing the roundabout, etc. Make them watch you hard the next 2 months so they can learn as much as possible before we have it. It will help a lot. Because we want them to know how to get from your house to Hayes High next year. Okay, so make them pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it. Guys and ladies, am I forgetting anything? Okay, one thing I want to talk about, the last thing before I dismiss you guys that turn stuff in is the roundabout. I have very closely watched the driving in the roundabout. One, because I live close to there. Secondly, because I don't want to get killed. And third, because I know we might get killed trying to teach it to someone. I have one major concern I have that I called and spoke to Brian Dawson, who's the Assistant Chief of Police here in Hayes, is that the northbound traffic in the outside lane does not yield like they're supposed to. So if you're heading on 32nd Street, heading east by Hayes Chevy, and you want to turn right at Starbucks, and you're supposed to go all the way across, and they're supposed to yield to you, they're not. And to make matters worse, there is a solid white line that does not allow you to make a right-hand legal lane change to still get that turn in if traffic is clear. So Officer Dawson is going to have more police in that area to give citations for those that don't yield. He's also going to talk to Kevin Zimmer, the engineer of this project, to see about changing that white solid line to a white dotted line. Okay? There is a video, hopefully Mr. Haney hooked this up correctly, you'll be able to see it and hear it.
Watch this white SUV as it makes a proper movement from traveling southbound on 9th Street to eastbound on 33rd Street. As it crosses over from west to east, northbound 9th Street traffic must yield to the white SUV in the roundabout. Notice how it correctly crosses over into the outside northbound lane to prepare for exiting the roundabout at 33rd Street. After signaling for a right turn, it exits onto eastbound 33rd Street. Watch the white pickup as it makes a proper movement from traveling northbound on 9th Street to westbound on 32nd Street. There is no approaching traffic on 9th, but if there were, the 9th Street traffic would need to yield to the white pickup in the roundabout. Again, notice how it correctly crosses over into the outside lane to prepare for exiting the roundabout at 32nd Street. After signaling for a right turn, it exits westbound on 32nd Street. This silver car correctly used the inside lane of 33rd Street to enter the roundabout and cross over to the southbound side into the outside lane of southbound 9th Street. Signaling to make a right turn, it exits on 32nd Street. Here we see a silver SUV that correctly used the inside lane of 33rd Street to enter the roundabout. The red pickup in the outside southbound lane on 9th Street properly yields to the SUV in the roundabout. Signaling to make a right turn, the SUV exits the roundabout. watch this silver SUV. Vine Street traffic is properly yielding to it. It should have crossed over to the outside lane right away rather than crossing the solid white lane line. That was an improper lane change. Watch the black car. It stops in the roundabout for northbound Vine Street traffic. See how other traffic gets backed up in the roundabout? This is a good example of why traffic within the roundabout has the right of way. Here is another example of an improper lane change where the gray car crosses the solid white line. It should have gotten into the outside lane right away. Pay close attention to the red SUV. As it crosses over to the east side of the roundabout, it should have gotten into the outside lane. Instead, it got in the inside lane and nearly comes to a stop in the roundabout, making an improper lane change. Now watch the white car and the black car approaching from the west on 32nd Street. The black car improperly passes around the white car. While 33rd Street has a two-lane approach to the roundabout, 32nd Street has only a single-lane approach. The black car then also makes an improper lane change and continues to meander across both lanes as it proceeds northbound. Think ahead, pick the proper lane, and stick in it. Here is another example of why traffic in the roundabout has the right of way. Vine Street traffic is not yielding as it should, and the gray car stops, causing a near traffic jam in the roundabout. Both lanes that are approaching traffic need to yield to vehicles in the roundabout. Once it got moving, the gray car did properly get in the outside northbound lane. Watch the two white SUVs in the inside lane approach to 33rd Street. The first SUV does a good job of executing the movement from 33rd Street to 32nd Street. The second SUV does not do as well. It does not get into the outside southbound lane and then makes an improper lane change across the solid white line. To wrap up, let's see a couple of large semi-trucks properly navigating through the roundabout. If the trucks take it slow, they can stay in their lane. However, other motorists need to be alert and give those trucks some room. The lanes within the roundabout are 4 to 5 feet wider than a typical 12-foot lane, providing extra room to stay clear of trailers that might get close to crossing the lane line.
All right, so hopefully that helps clear up, because we're really going to focus when you drive with your son or daughter that we are teaching that right, so that when we get them, we can teach it right as well. So quick reminder, so if your son or daughter was pre-enrolled at the middle school or at the high school, they have turned everything in, you have nothing left to turn in. Unless you have not made payment and like to do that, credit card is down by Renee. If you're doing something you want a receipt right away tonight, you'll see Sandy. If you don't care about receipts, just see Justin. Ryan and Jessica will receipt that and give it to you the first day of driver's ed. Keep in mind, full payment is not due until the last day of the section they are in, but we would like a $100 deposit before we start. Okay, if you have a son or daughter that was not at pre-enrollment and has filled out no paperwork, then you're going to see Kate or Scott at this table. Okay, if you just need payments for credit cards, you'll see Renee on the end. Okay, thanks for coming out tonight. So those of you that still want to stay around and turn stuff in, if you have questions. If you have questions from Teresa about licensure, she's right here. Okay, thank you.